Hi. In this presentation, we're going to take a look at the Toulmin argument. We've already looked briefly at the classical approach and the Rogerian approach, and now it's time to look at the system of reasoning that was developed by British philosopher Stephen Toulmin to build convincing cases. In his book, The Uses of Argument, which was published in 1958, he presented structures to describe the way that ordinary people make reasonable arguments. His approach acknowledges the complications of life, those situations when people qualify their thoughts with words such as sometimes, often, presumably, unless, almost. His method isn't as rigid as formal logic, using syllogisms like all A is B, all A is C, B is a C. Hold on, I can't read this well. All A is C, B is an A, therefore B is a C. Because of that, Toulmin's logic has become a powerful and practical tool for understanding and shaping arguments in the real world. So, the Toulmin argument begins with a claim, a debatable and controversial statement or assertion that you hope to prove. Claims are worth arguing, and those that are worth arguing tend to be controversial. You don't need to argue about points on which most people would agree. Your claims or your thesis statement should be debatable. They can be demonstrated using logic or evidence, which is the raw material for building arguments. Facing issues squarely takes thought and guts. The claim answers the question, what's your point? It's your thesis in the paper. Some writers would rather ignore that question and avoid taking a stand. Then they merely report. When you make a claim worth writing about, you move apart from the crowd and ask that the crowd notice you and your stand. So claims or thesis statements are statements. They're never questions. Good claims often come from personal experience. Almost all of us know enough about something to merit the label expert, though we don't always realize it. As a student, you're an expert on education. You know what works for you and your friends, what the problems with arts education in the schools are, what's wrong with the system for student athletes. You know a lot and you are credible. So you're an expert. And education is probably not the only topic on which you are an expert. So after the claim, which you may begin developing by drawing up a list of reasons to support your claim or finding evidence that backs up your point. And in so doing, you generally generate still more claims that are in need of more support. And that's the way that arguments work. They start with research. Maybe it's your personal experience or the experience of people you know and facts and authorities. You attach your reason to a claim. Is this statement credible as it stands, or will my readers have questions about whether the reasons and the evidence I provide really support my claim? So let's say you want to talk about changing the drinking age. Should the drinking age be changed simply because you've been drinking since you were 14 and nothing's happened? Should the state base its laws on what worked for you? Probably not. Take a moment to consider the quality of your assumptions and your evidence. Is there a logical and persuasive connection between your claim and the reasons and the data you provide to support it? So, we start with a claim, we start to accumulate evidence and good reasons, and the evidence and good reasons point to the claim. What we need next is a warrant. The warrant is the connection between the claim and the reasons and the data supporting it. The warrant answers the questions, how do I get from the data to the claim? Like a warrant in a legal situation, a search warrant, for example, a sound warrant in an argument gives you authority to proceed with your case. So, the warrant tells readers what your often unstated assumptions are. The middle portion in a syllogism, for example. For example, if if you wanted to argue that any practices that cause serious disease should be banned by the government, if your readers accept your warrant, you can then present specific evidence to develop your claims. But if your readers dispute your warrant, you'll have to defend it before you can move on to the claim itself. When you state your warrant, you are looking for a general principle that enables you to justify the move from a reason to a specific claim. You're looking for the bridge that connects them. The warrant is the assumption that makes the claim seem plausible. It's often a value or a principle that you share with your readers. So let's say you're riding in a car that a friend is driving, and you notice that the gas gauge is empty. You've run out of gas before, and you know it isn't fun, and so you say to the driver, "We'd better stop for gas because the gauge has been reading empty for more than 30 miles. Your evidence is pretty clear. The gas gauge is reading empty. And you know when it's moved to the empty position. You don't have to state the reason why you want to stop. The tank is almost empty. The warrant connecting the evidence to the claim is compelling and obvious. If the fuel gauge of a car has been reading empty for more than 30 miles, it's a very good chance that the car is going to run out of gas. Most people would accept the warrant as reasonable, and they would also likely accept the statement that the warrant supports. We better stop for gas. So let's look at another. Grades should be abolished because I don't like them. The claim is that grades should be abolished, and the reason is because I don't like them. So the warrant is, what I don't like should be abolished. I'm sorry, that's just a little silly. It probably wouldn't hold up. Warrants tell you what arguments you have to make and at what level you have to make them. If your warrant isn't controversial, you can begin immediately to defend your claim. But if your warrant is controversial, you must first defend the warrant, the belief that underpins the claim, or modify it or look for better assumptions on which to support the claim. Building an argument on a weak warrant is like building a house on a questionable foundation. Sooner or later, the structure will crack. So let's take a look at this warrant. First, the claim. Flat taxes are more fair than progressive taxes because they treat all taxpayers in the same way. And the possible warrants underpinning that claim are that treating people equitably is the American way, and all people should be treated in the same way. So it might work, but then why are there states and why is the federal government using a progressive approach to taxes, requiring people at higher levels of income to pay higher taxes than people at lower income levels? Could it be that the warrant is not universally popular? And if it's not universally popular or controversial, then first you have to support the warrant. So let's take a look at some possible contrary claims. Progressive taxes are more fair than flat taxes because people with more income can afford to pay more, benefit more from government, and can shelter more of their income from taxes. Or this one, people should be taxed according to their ability to pay. Or this one, people who benefit more from government can shelter more of their income from taxes and should be taxed at a higher rate. So these are based on a different warrant, a different belief system. And what we have are claims first, the ones about flat taxes being better, that might represent the beliefs of more conservative Americans, and the ones about progressive taxes being those of more liberal Americans. What does this suggest? As much as possible, you should know your audience and choose your warrant based on what you know about them, the context of your argument, and your own feelings. And years in which there are elections, this is hard to do because the people running are speaking pretty much to the world all at once. So after warrants comes evidence and backing. because claims and warrants provide only the skeleton of an argument. The bulk of your work is in assembling the evidence to support your claim. And what are some of the kind of evidence you need? Well, background information, and you can get this through reading or conversation, and research of all kinds, including primary research. Do more than provide a morsel of information, provide a buffet. The textbook, again, Everything's an Argument, suggests that when you listen to talk radio, you often hear people who don't have enough information to be arguing. They just provide a morsel of information and just keep repeating it over and over again. And the people who do really well when they speak on talk radio or about an issue have a wealth of information at their fingertips. So you need evidence to support both your warrant and your claim. And you can use facts or emotional appeals or logical appeals or appeals to values. And remember ethos. Remember, use credible sources. And qualifiers. This is an important part. This is perhaps what makes the Toulmin argumentative form so attractive. Qualifiers, the words and phrases that place limits on the claims. So back in the classical approach, formal logic requires universal premises. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. And in my life, and probably in yours, things aren't always that clear-cut. If we could only argue about the things that are based on such clear-cut truths, we wouldn't have much to argue about. It'd be a different world. So Toulmin logic encourages you to limit your responsibilities in an argument through effective use of qualifiers. Qualify a claim early in the writing process. Here are some more qualifiers. As you can see, they make something true, but not always. Okay, conditions of rebuttal. During every stage in the process, consider having a conversation with your prospective reader. Imagine them as skeptical, demanding, cranky, quirky. Let them help you see possible objections and reservations that real readers have. They'll help you strengthen your claims and understand the reasonable objections of people who see the world differently than you do. So this semester, you're going to be writing analytical argumentative essays in which you're making a claim, a thesis, that is arguable. So use the information from the Toulmin approach as much as you'd like. But make sure that your claims are solid, based on good warrants, that you use solid evidence and credible sources, that you anticipate your audience's reactions and answer their questions and address their concerns, and that you go beyond yourself when you consider the why of your position. One other important thing, you don't have to provide conditions of rebuttal. Again, the textbook. Thank you. Have a great day.